Hello everybody, my name is Suzanne Roberts. I've been with the Macular Society now for 15 years as a counsellor, and for the last 2 years I've been heading up the counselling service. So today I'll be speaking about the emotional impact of sight loss, but first I'd just like to tell you a little bit about our counselling service that we offer, and then move on to some common themes that are experienced by those who access our service. So the Macular Society was set up, or the Macular Society's counselling service was set up 20 years ago. And this was because we became aware that there was very little sort of specialist emotional support for those who have macular disease. And over the years, our service has grown tremendously, with us supporting around 600 clients each year. And we now have a team of 7 qualified counsellors, all of which have extensive experience in sight loss, and that could be lived experience or experience that they've built up over the years. So those that are referred to the counselling service will be offered an initial telephone assessment, and this is to see how we could be of help. And often this is enough in itself to gain a shared understanding of what that client's difficulties are and to think about how we could support you. Others may go on to have a set of telephone counselling sessions, and sometimes this will include being linked to various other services that we offer. This is such as befriending, skills for seeing, or perhaps being linked to one of our support groups that will be local to you, or perhaps it might be some technical support that you need. And the service is available to anyone who has macular disease and anyone who's affected by somebody else's macular disease. So we will support partners and parents through this free confidential service. And you can refer yourself or a partner either through the online referral form, or you can call our advice and information line, which is 0300 30 30 111. And I'll repeat that at the end of my talk. So the emotional impact of sight loss is often overlooked, with the focus more likely to be placed on treatment or visual aids to help you maximise and make the most of the vision that you have. And these are, really, really important, but how you feel is actually equally important too. Because sort of at an eye appointment or treatment to have an injection, often it can feel rushed, and clients will report that there is little time, or they feel like there is very little time to actually be able to ask any questions. And at this moment in our lives, we cannot overlook the fact and the fact that we've been dealing with the coronavirus and the impact that has had and the effect that it's had throughout the world in terms of our health and well-being on a number of levels. We have seen an increase in the number of referrals that have come into our service, alongside an increase in clients reporting feelings of anxiety and social isolation. There were and still are a number of challenges that specifically affect those with a visual impairment, such as not being able to socially distance, or there are people we've spoken to that have been very anxious about socially distancing to the point that it's meant that that person didn't go out, wearing masks. And then some people who also wear glasses were dealing with the fact that their glasses were then steamed up and that was reducing their vision further. And also not being able to read signage and instructions in shops, etc., which will tell you which way to walk. We've all become aware more than ever, particularly during this current time, how busy medical staff are or how waiting lists have been affected. This has led to many people not contacting their GP, and some have actually struggled to actually get through to their surgery, and many having a sort of lengthy wait before they can get an appointment. In the early stages for the pandemic, and perhaps for some even now, there was a fear of attending eye clinics or eye hospitals to have planned injections or other eye treatments through a fear of contracting the virus. And at that time, there was a number of calls to our advice and information line with people seeking guidance and reassurance around making decisions which they felt involved the risk of contracting the virus or the risk of losing some vision. A really awful situation to be in and a difficult decision to make. And then many of the activities that many people relied on to help sort of lift their mood had been taken away. I realise that that is changing at the moment, but there are still some, and those people who are medically vulnerable and shielding, or those that are just understandably very cautious about the changes that are taking place. So let's think about some of the common everyday difficulties for some of those living with macular disease. So this won't be everyone, but this is just common themes that we've come across with those that we've worked with within the society, within the counselling service. So, and these get mentioned on a regular basis. So not being able to recognise faces. And many people feel quite sort of concerned that they're passing people in the street and worry that they don't want other people to think that they're ignoring them, but they simply just haven't seen them. Not being able to make eye contact, finding it hard to read what you've written down, such as a telephone number. Again, this comes up quite a lot with the counselling service, and I think it can help if you've got a pen with a very sort of thick nib, like a felt tip pen, and for some it works having yellow paper and a black ink, but you've got to do what works for you. Struggling to read generally, especially when the print is very tiny, such as instructions on food packaging, or the frustration at having to wait for someone to come along before you can read the post so that they can help or they can do it for you. Not being able to see your face clearly in the mirror. And there are a number of people, or particularly those that want to apply makeup, that find this, really difficult. And trying to sort out a problem over the telephone and being asked to press lots of numbers, which for some are really difficult to see. And feeling frustrated if you're not familiar with using technology. I know many people are, but if you're one of those that's not so sort of tech savvy and find that you're being directed constantly to online information, that too can cause a lot of frustration. And I think something which I think is very hard for many, many people is not being able to drive. Being told that you're not able to drive anymore, or you've actually decided yourself that you don't feel safe driving anymore. I think that can have a huge impact. And I'm sure many of you will be able to relate to at least some of the common issues that I have described. Not everyone with macular disease, I would say, will have all of these difficulties, as everyone has a different level of sight. And many of you would have found ways around them, such as using magnification, changing the lighting, or using various pieces of equipment and technology. You may have found that you've learnt your own strategies and ways of coping just as you've gone along. And the changes and the adaptations you make may feel really helpful and reduce some of the frustration that you have been feeling. And there's certainly something about macular disease and it being an invisible disability. And some people quite like that. And for other people, again, I go back to the word frustration. So I'll give you a few examples. Like, for example, when somebody asks if you've forgotten your glasses, if there's something that you cannot read, but actually your glasses or any glasses might not make any difference. A child being told to sit closer to the whiteboard, when again this wouldn't make any difference because of their level of vision loss. And according to the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Scheme that many of you may have heard of, 1 in 5 people in the UK actually have a disability, And 80% of these people have a hidden disability. And you may have seen this, that the Sunflower Scheme issue a sunflower lanyard to anyone who feels they have a hidden disability. And it just means that that person may need some assistance, or they may need some extra time. And the Macular Society do have bright yellow sort of rectangular badges that say, I have a visual impairment. But again, not everyone will want to make a statement to others in such a way. And it's a case of personal choice and always you doing what works for you. And for all of us, life throws us challenges along the way. So when somebody is diagnosed with a form of macular disease, they're never dealing with this just on its own. And I say just, but there'll be lots of other things going on. So you may be a parent and you may have other children to look after, or it could be that you have a child that's been affected with a macular dystrophy. You may have other health conditions or mobility issues. You could be a carer for a partner or a member of your family, and you may wonder how you will sort of continue in this role. And sadly, you may have experienced the loss of a partner who may have supported you and made your sight loss feel far more manageable. And you could be prone to anxiety or low mood, and a change in your vision or a diagnosis could trigger a relapse, as could visits to the eye clinic or receiving treatment. So life goes on, and we will all be living in different environments with different incomes. Some may live a long way from transport links. Others may be in the centre of town. You may have friends or family close by, or you may live alone. And these are all factors which will influence how you cope day to day. And we mustn't forget that as well as the challenges in life, there will be very happy times and there will be joyous moments, all of which will enhance your life and also your ability to cope. So I want to give you some feedback now, or a quote, if you like, from a lady who did access the macular counselling service a while ago. And this is what she said. I was told very bluntly that I had macular disease. I had never heard of it. I was told I wouldn't go blind. At the end of my appointment, I was shown out of the consulting room and down the corridor where there were leaflets, and I was encouraged to take some information away with me. I was desperately trying to hold it together, and I didn't want to cry. I made my way towards the information board, and it was there that I burst into tears. I felt overwhelmed. I took some leaflets, I left the hospital, and I decided I never wanted to go back. Now, not everyone receives a diagnosis in this way or reacts in the same way as this client, but sadly, it's not a rare example. And we know from speaking to you that if you are given a diagnosis in a kind and informative manner, where you are told where to go or who to contact in the future, or you're given some information to take away from you, this can really help with how you cope and how you process the information you've been given, particularly at the initial diagnosis, when you might not be able to retain what you're being told, and you may find that you sort of need time to digest what has been said and for time to pass before you actually feel ready to seek any support. But it's knowing where to go, and I think, and just being treated with that kindness and compassion. So for some, you may have been informed that there's been a change in your vision. So you may have gone along for an appointment and been told that there is a change. You may have been told that you need to start injections with wet macular disease, or you could have been told that your treatment is about to stop, or it isn't working. And these are all subjects which specialists can deliver in seconds, so sort of to give you that information, but can have a huge emotional impact on the receiver. And equally, we speak to those whose vision has remained stable for a long period of time, so there's been absolutely no change, or where treatment has made a difference, news which is no doubt well received and always wonderful for us to hear. So within the counselling service, it's a huge privilege that clients trust us with their most painful feelings and share things that they might not feel comfortable saying with friends and family, or perhaps they don't have anyone else to share their thoughts with. So during my talk today, I will refer to and share quotes from clients that have used our service, as I want it to feel real and I want it to capture the heart of not only what we do, but what you tell us. I want to be able to feed that back to you. So it's not just me talking to you about macular disease. This is information taken from the clients that we work with. So the emotional impact of sight loss is often compared to the process of grieving. Most of us would have experienced that deep physical pain, physical and emotional pain of losing somebody that we were really close to, or somebody that we love. And that actually can impact on every area of our life. And at the time, we may think to ourselves, well, the only way that we'll ever feel happy again is if that person was back in our life. And similarly, the same can be applied to sight loss. Most would give anything to have their sight restored. Other improvements, however slight, can be made if you have impaired vision, especially if there is treatment available, and also through the fantastic array of visual aids and technology that's made available to us, thus maximising the vision that you do have. So vision may not be restored, but it may be improved and maximised so that you're able to still do some of the things that you enjoy. And sometimes it's a case of finding an alternative way to carry out a task, all of which takes time and a period of adaptation. So I'm going to now move on to the 5 stages of grief model. Now, this was devised by a lady called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she was a Swiss-American psychiatrist and a pioneer in the studies around loss. She was born in 1926, and sadly she died in 2004. And she wrote many books on sort of loss and developed a theory called the 5 stages of grief model. And the reason that I'm going to talk through this model is because it's well known, and particularly it's well known to those to help others understand the grieving process. And it's often referred to when counsellors undertake bereavement training. However, we do know that for some of those living with sight loss, that you've been able to relate to this model and that they have used it to make sense of what they are feeling. So what I'd first like to highlight is we are all different. And some of you will relate to each stage of the model. Some of you might relate to part of it. Some of you might feel that you go backwards and forwards, and others you may think that it's not applicable to you. Many clients that we speak to will say, I just want to know what I'm feeling is normal. So Elizabeth describes the first stage of that as that of shock and also denial. And phrases that we hear that come to mind are, I can't believe it. I've always had excellent vision. I was only going for a checkup. I thought I needed new glasses. And there can be a real feeling of utter disbelief, especially if the sight loss is sudden. And sometimes even if there is a slow deterioration and the shock of a formal diagnosis. So for many people, their vision has been stable for a long, long period of time. And then the shock of that change and having to readapt can be just as distressing as that initial diagnosis. So I think being told that your vision cannot be corrected with glasses, for many, I think we can say for everybody, is pretty devastating in itself. And the denial may present in various ways, such as keeping it a secret, so not wanting to discuss it with anyone, struggling but avoiding the use of any visual aids, so not wanting any association, or quite often with anything associated with sight loss. And denial could be seen as providing a safe space, particularly in the early stages, as it provides an element of emotional protection. It kind of sort of gives you time in a way to process your thoughts before you go on to make any decisions, before you tell anyone, before you do anything differently. And most importantly, it's about, you doing the things that you need to do when you are ready and at your pace. And we find that often as time goes by, and as you come out of, you start to emerge out of that denial maybe, and perhaps using the visual aids that you need, that you might start to feel actually more independent, and you may feel that you do want to let others know about what is happening. But again, that's a personal choice. So as time passes, there can be a sense of relief in emerging out of that denial, and perhaps using the visual aids that you need that can make you actually feel more independent, and perhaps letting others know when you need something to be done differently, such as needing paperwork to be in large print, or if you go into a supermarket, for example, and ask where something is and you're directed across 7 aisles, you may actually let that person know that you have a visual impairment, but it's always doing, what you actually feel comfortable with. And those close to you, they may be in denial too, as it may be hard for them to think of you going through such a difficult time or being diagnosed with a visual impairment. Like you, they may be afraid of change. They may feel helpless and simply not know what to do. And as I said, we do work with partners and other family members, and these are some of the comments that have come up. So I don't know if I'm talking about it too much or not enough. I don't know what is the right thing to say. I don't know when help is needed or when it isn't, and feeling confused about what the other person can or can't see. And with macular disease, you may find that you have some days that your vision is better than others. And there could be a number of reasons for this, including simply a change in the lighting. And of course, any sudden or significant change should always be followed up with an eye specialist. I worked with a client who visited a garden centre with her daughter, and her daughter was baffled that her mother could see certain flowers, but previously at home and in a different lighting, there were things that her mother would struggle to see. And this caused quite a lot of frustration, as the mother felt she was being unfairly challenged at times about what she could and couldn't see. And I think that comes up quite a lot. So the second stage of the model is anger. And when we think of anger, we may well think of frustration and also fury. And familiar words spoken are such as, I have enough to cope with. I had so many plans ahead of me. I could cope with anything apart from losing my eyesight. And you might take this anger out on yourself, or it could be that you start to take this anger out on others close to you. You may feel that this new world has been thrown upon you and ask, what do I do? Where do I go? And as part of feeling angry, you may also feel quite scared. And feeling angry is normal, but consider if your anger is getting in the way of you reaching out to others and seeking support. And sometimes the anger can spill out into being angry about lots of different things without meaning to. And sometimes pushing people away, those that are close to you, and maybe dismissing the support that is available. And clients like this need time to trust that something or someone might be able to make a difference, as underneath the anger is often a lot of sadness and also a lot of vulnerability. And the third stage is bargaining, so which may link more to grief and grieving, but there is a common theme here. So you may ask questions such as, would it have made a difference if I'd seen someone sooner? If only I'd gone straight to the eye clinic? You may feel that there is just so much going on that it's all out of your control and you're trying to find something to hold on to or to make sense of what is happening and regain some control. You may make promises to yourself or to a higher power in a bid to try and change what is happening. And then the fourth stage is depression, which I like to refer to as low mood, because I think probably the majority of us can relate to feeling low at some stage of our life. And clients may well make statements such as they feel like giving up, they won't be able to live their life like this, or I don't want to be a burden, how will I cope? And often feelings of anxiety will accompany feeling low, which may present in you feeling very sort of anxious and worried to the point that it's affecting your sleep or it's affecting your diet and your ability to concentrate day to day. And within our counselling service, we speak to many clients who go through phases of feeling low or feeling anxious. And this could be at various stages during their lives, sometimes directly linked to a diagnosis or a change in their vision, or sometimes it's simply linked to the day-to-day difficulties of life combined with a visual impairment. And feeling low will vary from person to person, as we know, that can present in disturbed sleep, so either undereating, overeating. You'll find that your ability to concentrate will be affected. You may feel that you have a total lack of motivation and are no longer showing interest in the things that you may have once enjoyed and you could still do, such as seeing friends or family or listening to music. So I'll just give you a quote here from a client who was feeling very low and then accessed the service. This client said, if you had told me 3 weeks ago that I would feel less panicked and more able to deal with this, I wouldn't have believed you. Speaking to someone and just knowing you are there has made all the difference. And I guess that's a fantastic example of how reaching out and seeking support can make a difference to somebody's life and just having that connection with the society. Now, the fifth stage is acceptance. And when I think of acceptance, I always think of that as being a huge, huge undertaking. So we'll all have different sort of ideas and understanding of the word, but I like to think of it as sort of arriving at a place where you mostly feel content and you're not constantly battling emotionally against the macular disease. But everyone, as I say, will have their own individual understanding. And I will hear clients say things along the lines of, well, I'm getting on with it, or I've got no choice, but I'm making the best of this, or I've got my head around this now and I feel a lot better. Acceptance often means allowing yourself to move on and perhaps to do things differently, get the help you need. You may feel more resilient and able to cope. You may feel strong enough to use what you have learned to support others in a similar situation, or you may feel like taking up a new hobby or volunteering, often clients will say that they start to feel more like their old self again. Now, you may have related to some of the examples I've mentioned. You may find that you relate to every stage of the cycle, some for longer phases than others. But remember, what you feel is normal to you. And as previously mentioned, family members or partners may have experienced some of those emotions too without actually having the sight loss. So there are times when talking about the diagnosis may be really hard for both of you or for you and your family, but communication is key. If speaking to someone close to you about sight loss is difficult for you or difficult for the other person, you may find that just talking about anything to begin with will get the conversation going, and just keep the line of communication open by sharing time together. So what do you do if you're feeling low or you're feeling anxious? So ask yourself if how you're feeling has been impacting on your overall happiness, sort of day to day. Have you been spending longer than 2 weeks feeling so low that you're sleeping, eating, your ability to concentrate is affected? If so, it might be worth speaking to your GP or perhaps giving our advice and information service a call to discuss our emotional support services such as befriending or counselling. And sometimes simply speaking to a friendly voice who understands can make all the difference. If your anxiety comes and goes, ask yourself if there's anything you can do to help yourself. Do you need to get out more if you can? Could you speak to a friend or a member of your family, or seek support from ourselves, or perhaps even your local sight loss charity? And remember that we all experience fluctuations in our mood, and you know what's normal for you, and you will normally know what's helped in the past and also what hasn't worked for you. So words that are often spoken, particularly at the early stage of diagnosis, will be, "There is nothing I can do." That comes up quite a bit. And I like to think that no matter what our situation, there's always something that we can do that puts us in the sort of strongest position to face whatever we've got, whatever's being thrown at us. And I think that's along the lines of eating as healthily as you can, keeping a healthy diet, not smoking. As we know, smoking can be harmful to us in a number of ways, including to the health of our eyes. To take exercise when we can, and if possible, to connect with others. And I know for some people this can be really difficult, but even connecting on the telephone, speaking to a neighbour, joining a local group, this can help to make you feel more mentally stimulated and give you a sense of belonging. And trying to get, best sleep that you can possibly get by making sure your room is as comfortable and as cozy as possible. And perhaps there is a hobby or something new that you would like to try, or maybe you might think about getting more involved with your local community. So there's lots of things that's out there and things that could help to build up your confidence. And there are, of course, millions of people out there living their lives with sight loss and living fulfilled, happy lives. And we get to speak to some amazing people, some very lovely people. And like with all of us, our full potential is often unlocked when we are feeling resilient. And likewise, it can be masked when we're going through stressful times. So your inner strength can sometimes feel like it's weighted down, but it's still in there and needs a bit of kindness and a helping hand. So I like the Winnie the Pooh quote, which is, "You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think." And lastly, if you or a member of your family or friends or anyone you know that has macular disease and is in need of our support, or you would like some advice on a topic related to living with macular disease, please give us a call and we will be there for you. You will come under the umbrella of the Macular Society, and you'll be introduced to a number of services that may support you. So I'll just give you that telephone number again. It's 0300 30 30 111. And just to say thank you for listening, and I hope that you've enjoyed the conference. Thank you.